The mysterious return. The scorching sun beat down on Death Valley's cracked earth as Park Ranger Officer Ethan Morgan made his routine patrol. 20 years on the job had taught him every ridge and hollow of this desolate landscape, but nothing could have prepared him for what he found that morning. A woman stumbled through the heat haze, her lab coat tattered and stained with substances unknown to Earth. In her arms, she cradled something that seemed to shimmer and pulse with its own inner light. Even at a distance, Ethan could tell this wasn't a normal rescue situation. Dr. Helena Rhodes, she managed to croak as he reached her, her voice rough from disuse. I need to contact the Astrobiology Institute. Dr. Marcus Way. She clutched the bundle closer to her chest, and Ethan caught a glimpse of opalescent skin and eyes like polished emeralds. Within hours, the remote desert location transformed into a hive of activity. Black government vehicles kicked up dust clouds as they converged on the coordinates. Dr. Marcus Way, a quantum physicist who had spent the last year searching for his missing colleague, arrived by helicopter. Helena, Marcus whispered, approaching her carefully in the medical tent where she sat, still holding the infant. We thought you were dead. The explosion in the lab, the temporal readings, where have you been? Helena looked up, her eyes holding secrets that seemed to span light years. Not where, Marcus. When? And more importantly, with whom? She slowly unwrapped the bundle, revealing the child fully for the first time. The infant's skin had a peculiar translucent quality, shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Its eyes, too large for a human child, blinked with an awareness that sent chills down Marcus's spine. This is Nova, Helena said softly. She's the last of her kind, and she's humanity's greatest hope, if we can protect her. The baby reached out with a tiny hand, fingers elongated and graceful in a way that no human child's could be. The nearby medical equipment suddenly sprang to life, screens flickering with complex equations and star charts that shouldn't have been in their databases. Impossible, one of the scientists whispered, frantically taking readings. No, Helena corrected, a slight smile playing on her lips. This is just the beginning. As government officials argued in hushed tones outside the tent, Helena recounted fragments of her story to Marcus. The explosion in their quantum lab hadn't killed her, it had thrown her across space and time, depositing her on a dying world orbiting Kepler 186f. There, she found a civilization in its twilight hours, the Voraxians, masters of consciousness and energy who had been searching the galaxy for someone like her. They chose me, Marcus. They needed human DNA, human consciousness, to save what remained of their species. Nova is more than just a hybrid, she's a bridge between two species, two ways of understanding the universe itself. Before Marcus could respond, Nova's eyes began to glow brighter, and every electronic device within 100-yard radius activated simultaneously. Satellite phones rang with impossible signals, computers displayed code that rewrote itself in real time, and somewhere deep in the Pentagon, alarms began to sound. Helena held Nova closer, her expression a mixture of pride and fear. They'll be coming for her soon, she said quietly. The ones who destroyed the Voraxians' world. We have to be ready. Marcus looked at his old friend and the extraordinary child in her arms, understanding that the world as they knew it had changed forever. Humanity had just been thrust onto a cosmic stage it never knew existed, and their next moves would determine not just their fate, but perhaps the fate of consciousness itself in the universe. As the sun set over Death Valley, casting long shadows across the impromptu camp, Nova reached out and touched Helena's cheek. In that moment, every person present felt a wave of something indescribable, a glimpse of possibilities that stretched beyond the stars themselves. The child of two worlds had come home, but the story was just beginning. The real question wasn't where Helena had been for the past year. The question was, what would humanity do now that she had returned with a child who could reshape the very fabric of reality? Secrets from the stars. Deep within a secure facility beneath the Nevada desert, Helena sat in a dimly lit room, her fingers tracing patterns on a holographic display. The images she created sparked and danced in the air, crystal spires that stretched toward twin moons, beings of pure light that moved like liquid starlight, and technology that defied human understanding. The Voraxians weren't just advanced, she explained to the assembled team of scientists and military officials. They had evolved beyond physical form. Their consciousness could merge with energy itself. She glanced at Nova, who slept peacefully in a specially designed cradle, her skin pulsing with gentle waves of bioluminescence. Dr. Marcus Way studied the readings from Nova's latest medical examination. Her DNA, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's not just a combination of human and alien genetics, it's actively evolving, moment by moment. General Catherine Hayes, a stern woman with steel-gray hair and decades of military experience, leaned forward. And you're saying these Voraxians, they chose you specifically? Why? Helena's eyes grew distant. They had been watching us for centuries, studying human consciousness. They discovered something unique about our species, our capacity for both logical thought and emotional connection. They were beings of pure intellect, but they had lost something crucial along the way, the ability to feel, to connect, to love. The holographic display shifted, showing the dying world of Kepler, 186f. Their civilization was failing not from lack of technology, but from lack of purpose. They had achieved everything possible in the physical realm, but they had lost their soul. Helena's voice cracked slightly. They needed humanity's emotional depth combined with their own evolutionary advances to create something new. Nova stirred in her sleep, and every piece of technology in the room responded, screens flickering with streams of complex data. Dr. Way rushed to capture the readings, his eyes wide with wonder. She's not just accessing our systems, she's improving them, rewriting base code that we thought was immutable. That's what makes her so dangerous, General Hayes said grimly. And so valuable. If word of her existence gets out. As if on cue, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Security feeds showed multiple breaches at the perimeter. But these weren't human intruders, the sensors were detecting energy signatures that defied known physics. They're already here, Helena whispered, scooping up Nova. The Crixus. They're the reason the Voraxians were dying. They hunt any species that threatens their technological dominance. Through the reinforced windows, they watched as impossibly sleek ships descended from the night sky, their hulls shifting like liquid metal. Soldiers scrambled into position, but their weapons seemed primitive compared to the advanced technology they faced. Nova's eyes snapped open, glowing with intense emerald light. Every computer in the facility activated simultaneously, firewalls and security systems upgrading themselves in real time. The baby reached toward the ceiling, and for a moment, the entire facility was bathed in a protective field of shifting energy. She's not just a hybrid, Helena said, watching her daughter with a mixture of awe and fear. She's the next step in evolution, for both our species. The Voraxians didn't just want to survive, they wanted to create something greater than themselves. Something that could stand against the Crixus and their empire of fear. Marcus placed a protective hand on Helena's shoulder. Then we'll protect her. Not just as scientists, but as humans. We've faced extinction-level threats before, dinosaur-killing asteroids, ice ages, our own nuclear weapons. Every time, we've survived, adapted, grown stronger. General Hayes watched the alien ships through narrowed eyes. We need to move you to a more secure location. There's a facility in the Rocky Mountains, deep underground. If we can buy enough time for Nova to develop her abilities. Time isn't the issue, Helena interrupted, her voice firm. The Voraxians showed me possible futures. In every timeline where humanity tried to fight alone, we failed. But in the ones where we learned to work together, to merge technology with consciousness, to balance logic with emotion. She looked down at Nova, who was watching the proceedings with impossible understanding in her ancient young eyes. In those futures, we didn't just survive. We thrived. The facility shook as the first Crixus weapons made contact with Nova's protective field. The infant didn't cry, instead, she reached out and touched her mother's face. In that moment, every human present felt a surge of connection, a glimpse of what the Varaxians had seen in humanity, not just their potential for violence and fear, but their capacity for growth, for love, for transcendence. As emergency protocols activated and evacuation plans sprang into motion, Helena held Nova close. "The real war isn't just about survival," she said softly. "It's about proving that consciousness can evolve through cooperation rather than conquest. That's what the Varaxians believed, and that's what Nova represents." The future of two species now rested in the hands of a child who was both human and more than human. As the first Crixus troops breached the outer defenses, Nova's protective field held strong, a perfect merger of Varaxian technology and human determination. The next phase of the battle for Earth's future was about to begin. The scorching sun beat down on Death Valley's cracked earth as Park Ranger Officer Ethan Morgan made his routine patrol. 20 years on the job had taught him every ridge and hollow of this desolate landscape, but nothing could have prepared him for what he found that morning. A woman stumbled through the heat haze, her lab coat tattered and stained with substances unknown to Earth. In her arms, she cradled something that seemed to shimmer and pulse with its own inner light. Even at a distance, Ethan could tell this wasn't a normal rescue situation. "Dar." Helena Rhodes, she managed to croak as he reached her, her voice rough from disuse. I need to contact the Astrobiology Institute. Dr. Marcus Way." She clutched the bundle closer to her chest, and Ethan caught a glimpse of opalescent skin and eyes like polished emeralds. Within hours, the remote desert location transformed into a hive of activity. Black government vehicles kicked up dust clouds as they converged on the coordinates. Dar. Marcus Way, a quantum physicist who had spent the last year searching for his missing colleague, arrived by helicopter. "Helena," Marcus whispered, approaching her carefully in the medical tent where she sat, still holding the infant. "We thought you were dead. The explosion in the lab, the temporal readings, where have you been?" Helena looked up, her eyes holding secrets that seemed to span light years. "Not where, Marcus. When? And more importantly, with whom?" She slowly unwrapped the bundle, revealing the child fully for the first time. The infant's skin had a peculiar translucent quality, shifting colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Its eyes, too large for a human child, blinked with an awareness that sent chills down Marcus's spine. "This is Nova," Helena said softly. "She's the last of her kind, and she's humanity's greatest hope, if we can protect her." The baby reached out with a tiny hand, fingers elongated and graceful in a way that no human child's could be. The nearby medical equipment suddenly sprang to life, screens flickering with complex equations and star charts that shouldn't have been in their databases. "Impossible," one of the scientists whispered, frantically taking readings. "No," Helena corrected, a slight smile playing on her lips. "This is just the beginning." As government officials argued in hushed tones outside the tent, Helena recounted fragments of her story to Marcus. The explosion in their quantum lab hadn't killed her, it had thrown her across space and time, depositing her on a dying world orbiting Kepler 186f. There, she found a civilization in its twilight hours, the Varaxians, masters of consciousness and energy who had been searching the galaxy for someone like her. "They chose me, Marcus. They needed human DNA, human consciousness, to save what remained of their species. Nova is more than just a hybrid, she's a bridge between two species, two ways of understanding the universe itself." Before Marcus could respond, Nova's eyes began to glow brighter, and every electronic device within 100-yard radius activated simultaneously. Satellite phones rang with impossible signals, computers displayed code that rewrote itself in real time, and somewhere deep in the Pentagon, alarms began to sound. Helena held Nova closer, her expression a mixture of pride and fear. "They'll be coming for her soon," she said quietly. The ones who destroyed the Varaxians' world. We have to be ready. Marcus looked at his old friend and the extraordinary child in her arms, understanding that the world as they knew it had changed forever. Humanity had just been thrust onto a cosmic stage it never knew existed, and their next moves would determine not just their fate, but perhaps the fate of consciousness itself in the hunters arrive. The Rocky Mountains loomed like ancient guardians around the hidden facility, their peaks shrouded in storm clouds that had appeared unnaturally quickly. Inside the reinforced bunker, Dr. Helena Rhodes watched security feeds showing the aftermath of their narrow escape from Nevada. The Crixus had leveled the entire complex, leaving nothing but a crater of twisted metal and scorched earth. They're getting desperate, Dr. Marcus Way said, analyzing the destruction pattern. These energy signatures, they're using weapons that could tear apart the fabric of spacetime itself. He turned to Helena, his expression grave. They're willing to risk destroying Earth just to get to Nova. Nova, now appearing to be a toddler despite being only weeks old, sat in the center of a specially designed chamber. Her accelerated growth had surprised even Helena. The child's opalescent skin rippled with patterns that matched the swift-moving thoughts behind her large, knowing eyes. Around her, a dozen holographic displays showed everything from quantum calculations to deep space telemetry. Commander Jackson Pierce, a weathered veteran who had seen enough impossible things in the past week to last a lifetime, entered the room with fresh intel. We've got movement in the upper atmosphere. 3 Crixus warships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They're bigger than anything we've seen before. Helena moved closer to Nova, who reached out with a delicate hand. The moment their fingers touched, every screen in the facility lit up with a cascade of images, memories from the Varaxian world. They watched as magnificent crystal cities crumbled under Crixus weapons, as beings of pure energy were imprisoned in devices that trapped and harvested their consciousness. The Crixus don't just conquer, Helena explained, her voice tight with emotion. They collect. Every advanced species they encounter becomes another trophy in their galactic museum. They believe they're preserving culture, but they're really just afraid of any civilization that might evolve beyond their control. Nova stood, her movements carrying an otherworldly grace. When she spoke for the first time, her voice held echoes of both childlike wonder and ancient wisdom. They fear what they cannot understand. And they cannot understand love. The facility's alarms suddenly blared to life. On the monitors, 3 figures materialized just outside the perimeter, Crixus scouts in biomechanical suits that shifted like liquid mercury. Their helmets were featureless except for sensors that pulsed with an ominous red light. How did they find us so quickly? Commander Pierce demanded, ordering his forces into position. Marcus studied the readings from Nova's chamber. The energy she generates, it's like a beacon to their technology. We can shield it temporarily, but she's growing stronger by the hour. Soon, no facility on Earth will be able to hide her presence. The Crixus scouts moved with impossible speed, their forms blurring as they tested the facility's defenses. Where they touched the reinforced walls, the metal began to age decades in seconds. They weren't just attacking the structure, they were attacking time itself. Nova watched the assault with calm understanding. She raised her small hands, and streams of energy began flowing from her fingertips, interconnecting with the facility's systems. The aged metal reversed its decay, becoming stronger than before. But more than that, the energy spread through the defensive grid, evolving it into something that merged human innovation with Varaxian consciousness. She's not just protecting us, Marcus realized, watching the data streams. She's teaching our technology how to protect itself. How to evolve. Through the facility's speakers, a harsh, artificial voice echoed, the Crixus attempting communication. Surrender the anomaly. Your species is young, primitive. You cannot comprehend the power you harbor. We offer you survival in exchange for the hybrid. Helena stepped forward, her voice steady. You offer imprisonment. We choose freedom. The Crixus response came in the form of a weapon that bent light itself, creating a vortex of destructive energy that began tearing away the mountain's face. But where their energy touched Nova's protective field, something unexpected happened. The two forces didn't just clash, they began to transform each other. Nova's voice filled the minds of everyone present, human and Crixus alike. In that moment, they all saw what the Varaxians had discovered: the next step in evolution wasn't about dominance or preservation. It was about synthesis, about finding the harmony between different forms of existence. The Crixus scouts retreated, their impenetrable armor showing signs of change where Nova's energy had touched it. They transmitted a final message before vanishing: the collective will not allow this contamination to spread. Prepare for extinction. As the storm clouds above the facility grew darker, Helena gathered her daughter in her arms. They'll return with their full force soon. We need to show humanity what's really at stake, not just our survival, but our potential. Nova touched her mother's cheek, sharing a vision of possibilities that brought tears to Helena's eyes. The Crixus believe that change brings chaos, the child said softly. We must show them that change brings growth. Commander Pierce watched the sky, where the Crixus warships loomed like artificial stars. How do we fight an enemy that can control time itself? We don't fight them, Marcus said, understanding dawning in his eyes as he watched Nova work with the facility systems. We evolve beyond their understanding of what combat means. Nova isn't just a bridge between human and Varaxian, she's showing us how to transcend the very concepts that the Crixus built their empire upon. As if in response to his words, Nova raised her hand toward the closest monitor, and the image changed to show a network spreading across the globe, points of light connecting human consciousness and technology in ways that had never been imagined. The next phase of the conflict would not be one with weapons, but with understanding. The storm above grew stronger, but now the lightning seemed to pulse in sync with Nova's energy field. Humanity's first true test against an advanced hostile species was about to begin, and their greatest weapon wasn't a weapon at all, it was the very thing the Crixus feared most: the power of consciousness to evolve, adapt, and transcend. Humanity's choice. The United Nations Security Council chamber hummed with tense energy as leaders from around the world gathered for the most important decision in human history. On the central display, satellite footage showed the Crixus armada growing larger by the hour. 17 warships now blocked out the stars, their hull configurations constantly shifting like schools of metallic fish. Dr. Helena Rhodes stood at the podium, Nova holding her hand. The child now appeared to be around 6 years old, her presence commanding attention even from hardened world leaders. Behind them, Dr. Marcus Way prepared holographic projections of the data they'd gathered. The Crixus have given us 48 hours to surrender Nova, Helena began, her voice steady. They claim this ultimatum is merciful. They're wrong. It's not mercy, it's fear. The Chinese representative leaned forward. Fear. They possess technology that could reduce our planet to atoms. What could they possibly fear from us? Nova stepped forward, and the chamber's lighting responded to her presence, creating patterns that danced across the walls. When she spoke, her voice carried both childlike innocence and ageless wisdom. They fear what you might become. The holographic display activated, showing scenes from the Varaxian archives, civilizations that had evolved beyond physical form, species that had learned to shape reality through unified consciousness. The Crixus built their empire on the belief that evolution must be controlled, Helena explained. They preserve species at the peak of their technological development, never allowing them to reach their true potential. President Rivera of Mexico stood. And this child, your daughter, she represents that potential? She represents a choice, Marcus interjected, bringing up new data streams. Look at what's already happening. Since Nova's arrival, we've documented unprecedented advancements in quantum computing, consciousness research, even human cognitive development. Children around the world are reporting shared dreams, enhanced intuitive abilities. The Russian president scoffed. So we risk planetary annihilation for the sake of evolutionary fairy tales. Nova raised her hand, and suddenly every person in the chamber felt a gentle presence in their minds, not invasive, but inviting. Through her gift, they experienced a moment of connection with each other, a glimpse of consciousness beyond individual boundaries. This is what they fear, Nova said softly as the connection faded, leaving the world leaders shaken and moved. Not our weapons or our technology, but our ability to transcend their understanding of existence itself. The Secretary-General wiped tears from her eyes. Even if what you say is true, the Crixus deadline approaches. How can we possibly stand against their level of technology? Helena shared a knowing look with Marcus before continuing. We've discovered something remarkable. The children who've been experiencing these enhanced abilities, they can interface with Nova's energy field. They're naturally adapting to the merger of human and Varaxian consciousness. They don't see it as alien technology, they see it as an extension of themselves. Screens around the chamber showed footage from around the world, children in playgrounds generating small force fields, teenagers collaboratively solving complex mathematical equations through shared consciousness, young minds instinctively understanding and improving upon advanced alien concepts. The Crixus believe they're offering us a choice between submission and extinction, Helena continued. But there's a third option. Evolution. Not through conquest or preservation, but through growth and unity. The British Prime Minister stood, her expression troubled. And if we refuse to surrender the child? What then? The chamber's lights flickered as Nova processed a surge of incoming data. They're moving, she announced, her eyes glowing with emerald light. The Armada is taking up attack positions. Marcus quickly brought up tactical displays. We've detected energy buildups consistent with their temporal weapons. They're preparing to age our defensive installations into dust. The chamber erupted in panic, but Nova remained calm. She reached out, taking her mother's hand, and every screen in the room came alive with a new kind of data, the collective consciousness of Earth's children, already beginning to form a network of shared awareness. We don't have to fight as we always have, Helena said, raising her voice above the chaos. The Varaxians chose humanity for a reason. Our greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons, it's our ability to adapt, to imagine, to believe in possibilities beyond our current understanding. Nova's energy field became visible, a shimmering dome of opalescent light that expanded to envelop the entire UN building. Outside, the first Crixus temporal weapons began to fire, streams of concentrated entropy seeking to unravel the very fabric of Earth's spacetime. But where the weapons struck Nova's field, something unprecedented occurred. The entropy itself was transformed, channeled into new patterns of evolution and growth. The defense wasn't just stopping the attack, it was learning from it, adapting it, transforming it into something new. This is what humanity does best, Helena declared, watching the transformation with fierce pride. We don't just survive, we learn, we grow, we transcend. The Crixus want to preserve what they understand. We want to discover what we might become. The UN chamber fell silent as the reality of their situation became clear. Humanity stood on the brink not just of destruction, but of transformation. The choice wasn't really between surrender and extinction, it was between remaining what they were and evolving into something greater. Nova turned to the assembled leaders, her eyes reflecting the collective hopes and fears of two civilizations. The Crixus believe that change brings only chaos. We must show them that change brings understanding. That evolution isn't a threat, it's a promise. As the Crixus weapons continued to rain down, transformed again and again by the growing network of human consciousness, the world's leaders faced the most important vote in history. The future of not just humanity, but of consciousness itself in the galaxy, hung in the balance. The time for humanity's choice had come. A new dawn. The sky above Earth burned with otherworldly light as the Crixus launched their full assault. Their warships, now numbering in the hundreds, formed intricate geometric patterns that focused their temporal weapons into a single, devastating beam. The attack was designed to age the entire planet into dust in a matter of minutes. But Earth was ready. Nova stood atop the United Nations building, her form radiating pure energy as she connected with millions of children across the globe. Dr. Helena Rhodes and Dr. Marcus Way monitored the unprecedented merger of consciousness through hastily assembled quantum interfaces, watching in awe as humanity's youngest minds instinctively grasped concepts that had taken the Voraxians millennia to master. "The network is stable," Marcus announced, his voice filled with wonder. "Every continent, every major population center, they're all connected through Nova's field." The Crixus beam struck Earth's atmosphere, and for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then Nova raised her hands, and 1,000,000,000 young minds rose with her. The temporal energy didn't just stop, it reversed, transformed, evolved. Where the Crixus sought to impose entropy, Earth's children wove new patterns of existence. Impossible. The Crixus commander's transmission boomed across all frequencies. "Your species is too young, too primitive to manipulate temporal fields at this level." Helena stepped forward, standing beside her daughter. "You've spent so long preserving what you understand that you've forgotten how to learn something new. You see youth as weakness, we see it as potential." The children's network expanded, their shared consciousness reaching toward the Crixus ships. Where their awareness touched the alien technology, something remarkable happened. The rigid, geometrical patterns began to flow, to change, to dance with new possibilities. Nova's voice echoed in every mind, human and Crixus alike. The Voraxians didn't choose humanity because they were perfect. They chose them because they could imagine being better. Because they understand that true evolution comes from connection, not collection. Throughout the Crixus fleet, systems began to respond to this new form of consciousness. Their weapons, designed to control and contain, found themselves transformed by the very force they sought to suppress. The ship's quantum cores, exposed to the pure potential of unfettered consciousness, started to resonate with a different frequency. Commander Pierce, watching from the military command center, saw it first. Their fleet, it's not just stopping. It's changing. The Crixus ships were indeed transforming, their metallic surfaces flowing like liquid starlight as they responded to the collective imagination of Earth's children. The rigid patterns of conquest became fluid designs of cooperation, their very structure evolving beyond the limits of their original purpose. "This is what the Voraxians foresaw," Helena explained, watching the transformation with tears in her eyes. "Not a victory of one species over another, but a transformation of both. The next step in galactic evolution." The Crixus commander's next transmission carried something new in its artificial voice: uncertainty. "What? What are you doing to us?" Nova smiled, her form now barely contained by physical reality. "We're showing you what you've forgotten. That the universe isn't a museum to be preserved. It's a garden to be grown." All across Earth, technology began to change, evolve, transcend its original limitations. Quantum computers merged with human consciousness, artificial intelligence gained emotional depth, and the barriers between thought and reality became permeable in ways that even the Voraxians hadn't imagined. The Crixus fleet hung in space, their ships now pulsing with the same opalescent energy that flowed through Nova. Their rigid hierarchy of command and control dissolved in the face of a power they had never thought to collect, the power of collective growth and shared evolution. Marcus checked his readings one last time, hardly believing what he saw. The temporal fields, they're not just stable. They're creating new patterns of spacetime. The children aren't just defending Earth, they're teaching the universe itself how to evolve. The Crixus commander's final transmission carried no threats, no demands. Instead, it held a question: what? What do we become now? Nova's answer flowed through the network of consciousness that now spanned Earth and reached into space itself. Whatever we imagine. Together. As the sun rose over Earth, its light played across ships that no longer belonged to either humans or Crixus, but to the future itself. The children's network hummed with possibilities, their shared dreams reshaping reality in ways that honored both the Voraxians' wisdom and humanity's endless capacity for growth. Helena took her daughter's hand, feeling the pulse of this new existence flowing through them both. The Voraxians didn't just want to save their species, she realized. They wanted to save the very idea of evolution itself. And through you, through humanity's children, they succeeded. The dawn painted the sky in colors that had never existed before, as Earth took its first steps into a future where consciousness knew no bounds, where evolution was a dance rather than a race, and where the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to preserve or destroy, but to imagine, to grow, and to become something more than anyone had ever dreamed possible. Humanity hadn't just survived its first contact with advanced alien civilizations. It had helped create something entirely new, way of existence that transcended the very concepts of species and civilization. The story that began with a mysterious disappearance and an alien child had become the story of consciousness itself learning to evolve beyond its own limitations. As Nova looked up at the transformed ships now orbiting Earth like luminous guardians, she spoke one final time to all minds, everywhere, this isn't the end of our story. It's the beginning of everyone's. And in that moment, across Earth and space, through time and consciousness itself, a new kind of dawn began to rise.